thanks so much for coming. We're excited to show you all these tips. So my name is Gabe. I'm with API Nation, and we are hosting this webinar to get everybody started basically sprinting and using email newsletters successfully. You probably have heard a little bit about them from other real estate thought leaders, maybe from a friend. And so we thought we'd bring in Zach Hammer, who's been doing this for, I don't want to say, too many years. You've been doing it for a while, and you become an expert at it. And so Zach, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my quick backstory, the short of it, I've been doing internet marketing in some form or fashion for about the past 10, 12 years. I don't know, I lose track a little bit. About 7 years ago, I took a job as the marketing director for a real estate team in Las Vegas. At that point, I had zero real estate experience. All I knew was like marketing in general. But while I was there, I learned the business. I learned the specifics and the particulars about real estate. And during that time, I was able to 5x their lead flow, cut their cost per lead in half, and we doubled in business every year that I was there. But I am I gotta be honest with you. I am not a great employee. I am much more of an entrepreneur at heart. So I set out on my own on good terms and everything. But I set out on my own. And that's where my company, Real Estate Growth Hackers, came from. We're now the same things that I implemented with that team in Vegas. I help agents all across the country, all across the world, implementing those cutting edge marketing tactics that work in today's day and age. And definitely one of those tactics is email marketing for sure. And, a couple other just interesting things. Actually, while right now I'm in Iowa and I'm stationary, normally my family and I actually live full-time in an RV traveling the country. This past summer, we went from San Diego all the way up into Canada. And that was a good time. But we kind of got halted during this whole COVID thing. and we're in the process of getting a new rig before we set back out on the road. But yeah.
Yeah, we all got halted. It's funny you talked about you're not a great employee, and when I talked to talking to a lot of real estate agents, that's how they kind of describe themselves too. They're like, I just want to I want to go make my money. I don't want to be making money for somebody else, or I don't want to be working somebody else's hours. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so like I said, I'm with API Nation, and if you are unfamiliar with API Nation, or maybe you forgot who this guy was who was sending you these emails for this webinar, API Nation is a platform that connects the apps you use. So if you're ever on your phone and you see all those icons, and you have a bunch that you use for real estate, like Mailchimp, Homebinder, Gmail, Brokermint, Loop, all these apps that you use on the website, or on their websites or on your phone, we actually connect them so that the little things you need the apps to share, like contact information, transaction information, email information, even notes from phone calls, all that stuff just automatically gets synced between them, shared, so that you can save that time. Your assistant, your virtual assistant, that person doesn't have to sit there, getting carpal tunnel, adding all this stuff in. The computers can do it, because that's why they're there. Computers doing it so that people can spend more time with people.
One thing I'll throw in the ring about what's so great about what API Nation does and what you guys are up to. There are competitors in the world that we won't mention. We won't tarnish this webinar by mentioning the name of the lesser competitors. But specifically, real estate agents, I know you guys don't have time to figure out how to piece together a bunch of tools and figure out how to make it work. So what's cool about API Nation is that it's simplified, right? Like the way the connections come together, it's a lot easier to do. It's a lot more thought out right up, off the bat. So that it's easy to connect the things together that you need to connect together in the ways that will, more than likely already be exactly what you need. So there's less time spent figuring it out and a lot more time just getting the end result that you want. That's part of what's so cool about API Nation.
Yeah, definitely. We build it so that it's easy, and it's the only integration platform, the only platform where you connect apps that's built for real estate agents. There's all these other, there's other platforms, whatever. But we live and breathe with real estate agents about how you guys are doing business. And, we want to help you make more money. That's all we're doing here. That's why we have this webinar, to help figure that out. So kind of walk you through what we're going to talk about, Zach is going to walk us through setting up our email newsletter. So we're going to talk about the 2 types of emails typically real estate pros will send. And we're going to talk about email newsletters as a growing strategy. So you may have heard a little bit about it, and we're going to tell you why newsletters are having a moment right now. And then we're going to walk you through the first few steps, the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s of getting that email out the door, and making it easy so that it gets out the door every week. It doesn't become, like a gym membership. You sign up for Mailchimp once, you send out that first email, and then you just look at those credentials and you wish you got in there more often. But we're going to make it easy so that you do get in there every week and do it. And then we're going to commit to start, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can continue to make this a success week after week. So Zach, tell us, what are the 2 types of email, my friend?
Yeah, great question. So, and first off, before I fully dive into that, I do want to point out, if anybody has any questions about anything we're talking about, not only will we have like a Q&A at the end, but feel free, drop those questions in the Q&A or in the chat, so that we can make sure to get those addressed for you. We're happy to really tailor this content to exactly what you guys need. So if we say anything that sparks a question or sparks a thought, feel free to drop that in. We definitely want to get to your questions. So the 2 types of emails though. On the left here, you can see we have what is probably the most common type of email that everybody is sending, that everybody needs to send, which is, more direct, one-to-one sales and conversational emails, right? The stuff where you got to communicate with somebody. They may not be a client yet, or they may be a client. It may be the type of email that's designed to speak very specifically to property needs that they revealed, or they may have come in off of a marketing campaign you did. Maybe you met them at an open house, and so you have more direct one-to-one communication. Now, some of that might still be somewhat automated. You might have tools that help you to do that, but it's very tailored to a specific person rather than something that you send out to everyone at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Do you have any questions about that, or it looks like everybody's got it? I see a lot of examples of this email, even in CRMs. A lot of CRMs will come with, templates or scripts for this email. This actually looks like a script that I pulled from a CRM. Hey, this person gave me your email address. You may not know this. I sold this house. Let's get a cup of coffee. It's definitely kind of a script, and it's great one-to-one for sure. That's this is I've seen this is successful, and it also kind of works as a text message too, growing more and more. So it's interesting.
Yep. And honestly, I mean, that's worth mentioning. So these types of emails, these types of messaging, really, email is just the medium, right? Like you could replace email with text messaging, with Facebook Messenger, with carrier pigeon, with smoke signals. It doesn't really matter. But it's very specifically communication that's more one-to-one and a person-by-person basis. So that's kind of the first type. That's what I would call like a sales email. The second type of email is this kind that we have here on the right, which is more of a you send it in mass. It's sent out to lots of people at the same time. And it's less about having a one-to-one conversation with somebody and a lot more about building authority, building credibility, and building connection with people in mass. And this would be the style, and concept of like a newsletter, an email newsletter that we're going to be talking about here. Yeah,
definitely. Do you have like a favorite newsletter you currently get? Email newsletters are kind of growing. Have you is there one that you really love seeing in your inbox?
Yeah, and actually, I mean, that's a fantastic question, because the reality is that today there is just more and more content and more noise. So really do. You have to carve out a spot where like people actually want to see the email, and that's part of what we're going to talk about, is how you do that as a real estate agent. For me, one of my favorite emails that I see is actually, and we'll be talking about this as a model, is Tim Ferriss's 5 Bullet Friday. It's a fairly simple kind of email where Tim Ferriss, feel free to drop a message in the chat if you're familiar with Tim Ferriss and follow what he's up to. It's a fairly simple email. He includes basically like 5 things that stood out to him that week. Like whether it's a a documentary or a book or a quote or maybe even products sometimes. But really, it's kind of a view into how he thinks and what stands out to him each week.
Yeah, definitely. So that's like a newsletter. I get that too. I actually really like that. There's another one called The Brew, which I think they send like every day, and it's just like the daily news.
Nice.
So what sets those apart as like newsletters versus all the rest of the emails that you and I are getting, would you say?
I'm sorry, say that again. What was the question?
What sets those apart as like newsletters outside of just like the regular emails that you and I get, or even just like advertisement emails we get?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and we've got a lot of the key points on the screen here. So I'd say the last point that's on the screen is probably the biggest thing, which is that it's definitely this vein of either educational or entertainment, depending on what you're subscribing to. And so definitely there's that blend of edutainment where it's educational stuff that's also entertaining. Because if it's educational and boring, people aren't going to read it. So you kind of want both. If anybody's familiar with actually like the Masterclass series, that's like a great example of edutainment, right? Where you are learning something and you're learning a useful, practical thing. But a lot of the people who get those Masterclass courses, they're getting them for sake of it's an entertaining thing to go through, right? Like they might not be trying to become a stand-up comedian completely, but it's an interesting thing to go through. So yeah, that's a big portion of it, is that it's useful, it's interesting, and it's educational. Definitely the difference in it's not something that you're sending one-to-one. It's something that you're sending one to many. You put in a little bit of effort once, and then you can leverage that out to a bunch of people by sending it en masse to a bunch of people. And then, the other thing that really makes newsletters work well is doing them consistently, having a specific time that you're doing them, having a specific frequency. And you can adjust this depending on what you need. But yeah, that kind of consistent expectation is part of what earns people's attention. They start to know, hey, I can expect this thing to show up fairly frequently, either every week, every month, every other week, every day. It depends on the type of newsletter for how often you'd send it. But that consistency matters.
Yeah, the consistency is huge. There's a real estate agent who a lot of people, he's like growing in fame and a lot of people are hopping on. His name is Ricky Caruth. He's like a Remax. I think he might be XP now. A lot of you guys probably know about Ricky. And one of the things he talks about in sending regularly is he used the exact same subject line every time, just a different date. He's like, I want people to expect it, and they see it and they know it's me. And it's a really entertaining or a really interesting strategy. Definitely something to look into as you grow your newsletter, seeing how those subject lines look. So yeah, the newsletters are a little bit different. And so let's look at some examples. And we just pulled these from some awesome examples online just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. Aside from that, the bath remodeling guy. So this is a Century 21 agent, and this is great. This is kind of what we're talking about. Just interesting stuff to read. Not necessarily like, here's a house, do you want to buy it? It's other stuff that is long lasting content. Even if you're not looking to buy a house today, tomorrow, or even this year, you're going to keep opening Corinne's emails.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the keys. I think we'll talk about it a little bit more, but it's an important point to note that doing this well, you're not going to get people to open your newsletter if all you're sending them is properties. Because the reality is, over time, a large portion of your list will not be interested in homes right now, right? They've already bought their home, or they've already achieved that portion, and so their mind isn't looking for properties. Now, there are segments of your list that are definitely looking for properties, and you should absolutely be sending them properties. I'm not saying sending properties is a bad thing, but by doing a newsletter the right way, you give yourself the kind of content that can stand out, that can keep people's attention, even if they're not in the market for a transaction right now.
Yeah, I pulled this one specifically with that in mind because it is like a really good mix of what you're talking about.
Yep.
It's, A Meat Eater's Guide to LA, which is something I want to read.
Right.
And, learn all about that. Meat is huge in my life. And then, here's also an open house, come by.
Right.
Come check it out. We'll talk. So I love this, and it's so simple too. I don't have to read a lot. Big, beautiful pictures. And honestly, this guy probably took 10 minutes to put this together because it's two things. Right? It looks beautiful. This is from the article. Yeah. So that is probably my favorite that I saw.
Right. And part of what I like about that one too is it leverages a tactic that I like to call it's the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. Right. So the reality is it's a balancing act. If all you talked about in your newsletter was just, guides to meet in Los Angeles, well, that doesn't do anything to really lift you up as a real estate agent. Right. So you've got to have the thing that says, hey, you can come here and there's always going to be something for you. Right. Like there's something that you'll enjoy no matter what. But don't forget, I'm a real estate agent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
don't forget.
That's right. That's so key. Yeah. The little articles and stuff you include, the general rule seems to be, these are articles that show my area, the area where I sell homes.
Right.
I'm like the mayor of this area. So,
right.
And, you should want to live in my area. So,
yeah.
I think
my area is great.
yeah. When you're thinking about things to send, maybe keep that in mind. Like, oh, let me talk about things that relate to the area where I'm selling houses. Don't send like, an article about what's coming out next on Netflix. That's not going to help anybody sell a house. But
Right. Yeah, exactly. Now, but what's interesting is honestly, and we'll talk about this a little bit in a little bit, but the 5 Bullet Friday strategy, you could potentially talk about Netflix. You could talk about some of that stuff and still get a good result, as long as you have enough there that still shows you're a local expert, still shows you're, still shows that you're in real estate and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things we could dive into when we get to that section.
Yeah, for sure. Local spot. Yeah. Joanna is agreeing. Local spotlight. Great insert on a newsletter. Awesome. Yep. Janet also wants to know if we will show how to embed on our website. Yeah. So we'll touch on that. We'll be sure to hit that in the how-to, talking about how to include these, how to reuse these as content over and over. So a couple things about newsletters. You may have heard about newsletters from a friend. You may have been signing up for more and more newsletters. And we kind of just wanted to explain why that's happening. Because we've all had email for almost over 20 years now. And now all of a sudden we're realizing, hey, this is like a viable, we should be really using this day to day. Yep. So some of the things most clients forget, Zach, you were telling me about this stat, real estate agents.
Yeah. So NAR actually did a study where they asked, they surveyed, recent home buyers, and what they asked was, hey, would you use your real estate agent again? And overall, people, I think it was like 85-90% of people said yeah, like that they would happily use their agent again, and it might even have been higher than that. It was a very strong number. It was basically saying most people enjoy the process of working with the real estate agent. They enjoy that process, right? It was a good experience. Yeah. Now, the problem that comes into play is that when you actually look at the number of people who do work with their agent again, it's only like 10%, which means it drops from that 80 to 90% of people who say, yes, I'd love to work with them again. When it actually comes time to, they don't end up working with them. And I'd say, yeah, the biggest reason why that happens is because they forget who you are, right? Like once they bought their house, they kind of leave your mind and leave your world. And so they don't hear from you anymore. And then the next person who actually talks to them is who gets the business. That's right. And that's the problem that people run into for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely like who comes to mind first when they're thinking about selling houses. I mean, I kind of scoff at it a little bit, but the people who put their face on bus stops, they're right there. And if you're thinking about a house at that moment, I guess I'm going to call, the Sally team and look for a house. So it's definitely about, go ahead.
I was going to say, and what's nice is that with what we're going to show you, you don't have to spend the money on the bus stops in order to try and get that visibility. We're going to show you how to do that in their inbox continually at definitely an absolute fraction of the cost, if any cost at all, depending on the size of your list. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things that you could do.
Yeah, so it is economical. It's easy to do regularly. You're supposed to do it regularly so that your clients don't forget about you. If you're doing it regularly, I've seen stats as high as people move or buy a new house every 8 years or so. So on average, that could increase your customer's lifetime value at least 3 times. If they remember you when they need to do that house thing every 8 years, you are growing your business. Those people don't leave you. Any entrepreneur or business person knows finding new customers is exponentially, I think, 9 times more expensive than keeping current customers.
It's 10 times actually.
And
10 times. But not only that, with real estate. So I mean, the unfortunate thing is, in most businesses, yes, repeat business is a massive part of what most businesses strive for, and real estate agents definitely should too, right? It's your business to lose, but the more realistic and more pressing, more immediate thing is all the referral business that's going to go on, right? Like that customer that had a great experience with you, if they stop hearing from you, are they going to think when they hear their friend is looking to buy or sell, are they going to say, oh, you need to talk to my real estate agent, right? They did a great job with me. I love what they're up to. They're very active. They do great stuff. Or are they going to say, oh, cool, good luck with that, right? Yeah. Like, are they going to think of you? Are you going to be top of mind? And this is part of what helps make sure that those referrals come your way rather than, basically just going into the ether.
That's right. Yeah. They'll remember the name. They'll say, oh, I got a guy. I'll forward you his weekly, best meets of LA article. You'll love it. And so some of the other reasons we had talked about, social media is a great channel to find and engage with clients. So that algorithm is totally behind. I mean, nobody knows exactly how Facebook decides who gets to see what. And not only that, but as the years go on, different platforms come and go. So if you spend a year and tons of money growing your presence on Facebook, that's great. Know that people are moving to Instagram and people are moving to, the next hot thing. And so it's definitely worthwhile, but yeah.
People are moving to TikTok and then getting immediately afraid if all their data is being harvested. But
we can get shut down at any time. Yeah.
Right. But like no joke, that's part of the problem that comes into play with social media. Is they are fantastic platforms to leverage, but know that it'd be like you getting into business and you are constantly like you're sharecropping. You are farming somebody else's land in order to get your crop and get your percentage off it. And at any point, they could change the rules. They could kick you off. They can say that what you're doing isn't allowed anymore. They can change the algorithm so that things that you used to do that worked now no longer work. They could decide that instead of servicing your posts, the only thing that they want to post are hilarious cat videos, or maybe the most alarming and antagonizing political posts that they could possibly find, which seems to be Facebook's spirit model. But
that's their bread and butter.
Yeah, right. But so I mean, it changes all the time, and so the best way to leverage social media is definitely to say, hey, I'm going to build up a following on social media in order to point them into something that I control, something like your email list, something like your newsletter list, right? So you can leverage social media to drive them into something that you actually, that you can actually control and own and take with you.
Yeah, you'll always have those email addresses. You'll always have that direct line to their inbox. McKinsey & Company actually did a study, I think it was in 2019, and they compared email marketing versus Facebook and Twitter. And they saw that email marketing was 40 times more effective at growing your business, which McKinsey & Company, they're smart guys. So I could crunch those numbers and I could come up with probably something close, but 40 times, man, that's huge. And then the last thing I saw was that you own these email addresses. You got the direct line to the inbox. So this future proofs, kind of like what Zach was saying, the platform's not going to go away. You're not going to have to learn how to do TikTok or TikTok 2, whatever that is. But also email is changing a little bit. So it is great to start engaging with people, to start sending these signals to the clients like Gmail, Outlook, letting them know that, oh, I normally get this email from my real estate agent. I'm totally okay with it, because Gmail is slowly moving these emails into promotions or social or hiding them from you. So the more you can start getting this going now and building that relationship, that history of emails going out to your clients, the more future-proof you're going to be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all about protecting your open rates and making sure that people are seeing and consuming the content. There's a lot that we could dive into for how to do that. But like one of the key things is if you leverage some of what we're about to show you for how you could do these newsletters right, then you're not going to be digging yourself into a hole, right? You can set this up in a way where people want to receive it. They are opening it and it keeps getting opened, and yet it still is effective for your business. So we'll definitely be diving into what that looks like.
Nice. So that is why you want to start that newsletter. And now it's time to start the newsletter. So step one.
Let's do it.
That's right. Let's do it. The step one to this is going to be getting a list. So you could start a newsletter with one person. As a real estate agent who's been in business for a while, I pray that you are not selling to one person and hoping that they will buy a house every day. But yeah, so we need to get that list. And actually, I'm curious, let me run this other poll here. Most people have their list actually in a CRM. So I was curious how many of you guys actually have a CRM, or if you don't, let me see if I can add. Never mind. Yeah, just pick out your CRM, or if you don't, drop a message in the chat letting us know which CRM you're using, or if you're just using an Excel spreadsheet, if you're using paper and pencil, any of that stuff, that is helpful as we kind of figure this out. But yeah, so a few places you can get a list. The first place is actually your CRM. That's where you've kept your database. That's where you collected all the stuff you've done business with in the past.
There's also friends and family, right? There's people that you're connected to personally that maybe are just in your address book, even on Gmail or on your phone, that you can you can start communicating with those people for sure. But I think you're about to dive into what is one of the hottest lists that you can be sending this type of newsletter to, correct?
Yeah. So there's the CRM, definitely like your contacts list, your Google contacts, your friends and family, that sphere of influence. One of the lists you have available to you that we have just launched an integration for that will help you leverage it. A lot of you guys are doing business and you have a transaction manager program, Brokerment, Loop, Law 47, some of these other guys, and all the people you've done business with are in there. It's a list. And some of them are, depending on how you use a program like Loop, they're already tagged by like role. So let me show you, we actually just launched this. So I wanted to show it to you guys first, but we have a new integration with Loop and Constant Contact so that you can get everybody who you've done business with in Loop and get them right into Constant Contact. If you're a Mailchimp person, this also exists for Mailchimp. If you're curious about that, shoot me an email and I can walk you through that. We're going to do Constant Contact today because that is brand new and nobody's really seen this before. So also, if you haven't set up an API Nation integration in the past, this is kind of what Zach was talking about. It's going to be so easy. So let me make sure this works. The only thing that might be weird is I set up so many that occasionally it gets a little bit confused. So it's usually like, oh, you already have this set up, and then it's it wants to know what happened. So that was it. I just signed into Loop. It connected Loop. Now I'm signing into Constant Contact. I was signed in on this browser a little bit earlier, so it still remembers that. It signed me right in. I just hit next.
Yep.
And then the connection will happen. And then you'll just be presented with a screen with just a couple options before you start this thing up. So if you have a bunch of profiles in .loop, you can select a single profile, or you can get all the profiles. So all the contacts related to the profiles, you can get all of those sent out. And then you're just gonna pick which email or which constant contact account you're sending it to, just to make sure. If you're, if you're working with a lot of different brokerages, sometimes you'll have different constant contact accounts, and it's just ensuring that. And all you have to do is hit subscribe and start. And when I hit subscribe and start, two things are going to happen. One, all those people I have in contacts in .loop, let me see if I can show you that. So everybody you have in contacts is going to get sent en masse into a list in constant contact. Yeah, so everybody you have in here, that's people, this giant list, the list that you have ready to go, it's going to be sent en masse into constant contact, and you can start sending to them. The other thing that's going to happen, so that's this guy right here, .loop people to constant contact contacts. And then the second thing that's going to happen is the participants, what we call the participants. So anybody you have related to a loop, so if you have an agent, if you have a buyer, a seller, those people are also going to get sent to constant contact, but they are going to get segmented by whatever you have them tagged with in .loop. So if you have them tagged as a buyer, there's a whole list of buyers. If you have them tagged as a seller, there's a whole list of sellers. If you have them tagged as an agent, they'll also be tagged as an agent. That way you're not, I mean, sure, you can tell them about, your favorite meat joints and everything. That's great. But just in case you want to send them something different, just in case you want to have those agents available to send listings or something, you'll have a whole list of them already collected. And we just did it. We connected the two apps, and then we hit go. And now these lists are building themselves in constant contact. And I can show you that.
And that's really so key, is just how simple it makes it. Because like other tools that try and do these same things, when you're setting them up, you really have to know what you're doing. You got to know what settings you need to put in. Sometimes you need to grab the API keys in a confusing way, and you have to navigate around and poke around and find it. Sometimes you have to, you have to know what the next step is that you want to have happen. You got to say, hey, I know I need to plug this into here, and this is what the fields are, and this is how I match them up. And it can work great in the right situations, but man, just having it be simple and consistent is drastically better, I think, for most people.
Yeah, no, that's huge. There's also, if you turn this thing on, if you've built something yourself, an integration thing yourself, and you turn it on and it's not quite set up right, it's going to be a fire hose of something going somewhere, and you don't want to just turn like a fire hose on in your house. You want to make sure it's sealed up, it's going where you want. So that's kind of what we do. We make sure all the plumbing's exactly where it needs to be, and then we can turn it on, and you don't just end up with just contacts everywhere, wherever. So for sure. So I just wanted to show you that as a way to easily build a list. If you have any questions about that, shoot me an email. But this is our newest integration, so I just wanted to show you. I'll send you guys a link after that. But yeah, like we said, pull people out of your CRM, pull people out of your transaction manager like .loop, like we just showed you, or just sit down and write out your sphere of influence. That's the first way to get a list. And then let's talk about content. So this is your bread and butter, Zach. The things what kinds of things should we send out? Because that is a big question we get.
Yeah, and that is a fantastic question. It looks like Lee Doen, I think I see on here. Asked a question that's relevant, not necessarily to the content especially, but it is relevant as you start looking at sending out these newsletters. They mentioned that they send a physical newsletter to their SOI for a few months, and then they stopped. And so now they're a little bit worried if that embarrassment of like, hey, like, is it going to look bad for me to start up again? Am I going to look unreliable? And honestly, I want to let you know, I think most people, this is somewhat the unfortunate thing, is most people probably didn't notice that. And part of what we need to realize when we're marketing something is people are paying attention to what we're doing drastically less than we are. And so they probably didn't notice. And further, anyone who did notice, they're not likely going to think much of it in terms of just starting it up and doing it again. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. More than likely, the thought that would go through somebody's mind is basically, oh, I guess I missed this. I missed. I missed the newsletter for a bit. I'm glad I'm seeing it again. Right.
Yeah.
So same thing with the email newsletters. You could start it up really without too much thought. You might have a few people who are a little bit, who say something about it when you first get started. But after a while, that tends to go away, and tends to go away partially. But I'll tell you what, I've been emailing people for a long time, and every email I send out, like half of the people are like, why am I receiving this? It's like, well, you signed up for this thing. And it's like, I'm not just sending things because I want to send them. You signed up to receive this. But anyway, so yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about that. And then, yeah, it looks like you're diving into kvCORE. We have some people asking about that as well. So if you want to go ahead and dive into that.
I was just going to show that in the background while we kind of talked about content. It looks really similar. It looks pretty identical. I think my internet's been a little slow right now, but you just do the same thing. You're going to connect kvCORE. It's going to ask you what your constant contact account is. And then it's just going to have that save button that says start. And then it's going to start pulling over contacts from kvCORE and shooting them right into constant contact on the list so that you can send emails to them. But this is what it looks like. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is there a connection as well between .loop and kvCORE so that people can get pulled from .loop into KV?
There is, I think kvCORE has a built-in integration between kvCORE to .loop. So there is that, and then you can kind of create this triad of just connected things, which is what we're going for.
And so yeah. So for everybody asking about this, just to try and give clarity on this, this is a perfect flow to kind of connect all these together. kvCORE is going to serve the role of housing more your sales and transactional kind of emails of that one-to-one communication. Now, again, it might be automated. You might be doing it to a lot of people at the same time, but on an email by email basis, it's more about that one-to-one communication. And then by patching kvCORE together with Constant Contact, now you're creating that place where you can keep those mentally separated, and that you have a place where you're doing your newsletter and it's newslettery type content, and then separately you have your place where you're doing your sales type content. So that's part of why you would use both.
Yeah, definitely.
Janet mentions a great point. Says, yeah, you have to not scratch your eyes out and then call tech support. That's a whole other kind of anxiety. Exactly. So that's exactly part of what API Nation seeks to solve in making this simple for sure.
Yeah, this is let me just finish up this kvCORE Constant Contact. So the kvCORE integration, this is what it would look like. It's very similar. You're probably going to want to check this box so that all the contacts go over. If you want to filter them, you can filter by buyer seller, and you can create this sync multiple times so that you can create one for buyer, one for seller, or you can just send them all over by leaving it like that. Hit save, and then we're going to pick a list. I'm going to send them to API Nation. We have a lot of lists. I'm going to just hit save, and then I'm just going to make sure these things match up. We automatically match them. Every so often, somebody has custom fields from Constant Contact that they want synced, but this is all good. And then we just hit start. So like I said, super easy. It's really similar to the .loop integration. So these are how you'll build that list. And then what are the most successful things to generate to send? We've already talked a little bit about it. Zach, what are some of the other things?
Yeah, so there's a handful of things that work really well. Probably the number one thing is local. Anything where you're featuring great things going on in your local community. That could be shining a spotlight on a local business. That could be shining a spotlight on events and things that are going on in the community. That could just be sharing your favorite restaurants, your favorite dish at a restaurant, your favorite things, right? Like so just businesses in general, events, community type stuff, your favorites, all of that locally focused content is all great stuff. There's lots of different ways that you can key into that you can find that. You can look at events on Facebook. You can look at like meetup groups. You can pay attention to what's going on in your local newspaper. All of that kind of stuff could be really useful. You can go to Yelp and find top reviewed businesses, and then start making it at a point to connect with those people and feature a cool local business in your newsletter every month. Explain what's great about them, what they're up to, what the best things are there, all that kind of stuff for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Local and what was the other thing?
So that's the first one. And that all of those ideas kind of fit into that local idea, right? And so then the next one is lifestyle. Lifestyle is going to be the stuff that it may not be locally specific. It should be locally relevant at least, but it's going to be all the stuff that's like, the way that I like to think of the lifestyle content is, how can you help somebody live in their home better, right? Like, like it's things talking about like, like we're in the middle of summer right now, nearing, moving toward the end of summer. It could be talking about things like how to turn your backyard into an outdoor movie theater, so that you can have, you can have like a drive-in experience at home. It could be talking about, how and when you need to clean your gutters in order to keep those effective and not risk damage to your home, after fall. It could be, if you live in a part of the country that actually has weather, it could be things like, the preparation that you could do to make your home heat efficient, cooling efficient, making sure those systems are in order, maybe even connecting them to local resources on like the types of inspections that they might need to get in order to keep those in order. On that note, by the way, some of that stuff can be handled automatically. We covered this in a completely different webinar with HomeBinder, which I think you probably have, you still have an ability to link that out if anybody wanted that, right?
Yeah, if you're using .loop, you can also connect it to HomeBinder, and it'll do a lot of this email stuff for you also. We'll link to that webinar also in the follow-up email. But yeah, perfect. So local and lifestyle.
And lifestyle. And then there's another couple types that can work as well. So we talked about this before. One of the things that'll help you to be unique and stand out. Now, this is third on the list, not necessarily because it's the third most effective, but it's not the thing that I would 100% lean into unless you have something more local or lifestyle related first. But it is perfectly okay to share more personal stuff, right? So local, lifestyle, personal. And the personal stuff, it could be, what documentaries you're watching that stood out to you, what music you're enjoying, what books you're reading, things that might have no difference to make on a real estate level, but they can potentially start to connect you to people personally, where they start to see, oh yeah, I like that stuff too. And so if you have local and lifestyle, including a bit of personal, can be a great way to connect with people. And then,
I like that.
And then
kind of just pepper it in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, the last thing that you should definitely be including is real estate, right? So actual real estate content. Now there's a number of different ways that you could do real estate content. Obviously, like you could promote your listings, your open houses, that kind of stuff. That's more obvious. But if you really want to do the real estate section well, especially in this kind of newsletter, you want to focus on trends. Okay, so you want to focus on what movement is happening in the market that impacts people's decisions. Is there a new stadium being built like there is in Las Vegas that might be affecting house prices in the area? Is there a surge of buyer demand and that's increasing selling home prices? And so that impacts both if you're thinking about buying or if you're thinking about selling, right? So the trends, the things that are going on that specifically might make a difference and might influence somebody's decision on if they're going to be buying or selling. That's what's going to work best in your real estate content, because that's the stuff that when people look at it, it's not just information. It's information that helps them make a decision. And that's going to be the real estate content that really sets you apart as an expert. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, because you're trying to build up your creds as an expert in your area, not just of restaurants and stuff, which is a big part of it, but also as a real estate agent and what's going on in the market. So I think that's the peppering and the layering of all these things as like just a balanced meal to send out there. I think that makes a lot of sense. So this is it. That's step one. Step two,
Step 3 is actually just start sending. So we're going to build that list.
Right.
You're going to pull them from your CRM, pull them from your transaction manager, get them into a constant contact or a Mailchimp.
Right.
And then, just sit down, think. I would just sit down with a piece of paper or an open Word doc or Google Doc and just write out, some things that you're interested in your area. If it's restaurants
Right.
you and your partner really love, just write that down. I'm going to share about that. Some things that happened some interesting things that happened to you as a real estate agent. Write that down. Some success stories, and then just news about real estate in the area that you want to write out. And then you can just pull from that. You have now a whole document of just ideas of stuff to send out. And I think that's probably the way to go about it. So those are the 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. And so that we all do this, if you guys, on the follow-up email, so we're going to send out a follow-up email with a recording of this, a link to the other webinar about HomeBinder, and then also invitation to the groups on Facebook for Real Estate Growth Hackers and API Nation. And if you guys just want to share, when you send that out, how it's going, what it looks like, we would love to see your newsletter so we can hold each other accountable and kind of see like, oh, he sent it out. That looks great. I love that. Oh, she did that. That is interesting. Gabe did that and it didn't really work. It's good to know. But I think sharing that in the groups is going to hold us accountable and start sending this thing out week after week.
And absolutely. I mean, feel free, guys, when you get those newsletters sent out, if you want some feedback on it, we're on the API Nation webinar, so definitely get those into the API Nation group. But feel free, tag me, tag Gabe in it, and let's hop in and we'll get you guys some feedback so that you could see our perspective on maybe what's going well on that, what's going wrong, what you could adjust. One other thing that I'd like to throw out for people, just to make it simple, if you want to kind of boil this all down to the most simple level that you can do, I think one of those examples that you showed was actually really perfect, which is, and I think it was can you pull that up? That one right there.
Yeah.
So what I like about this one, and I don't even know if there's more on this one than just those 2 things, but this is a great example. Yeah, that's a great example of how simple it could be. And that would be my recommendation for you. If you don't want to tackle every one of the ideas that I described, which is fine, don't start there, right? Don't put too much on your plate. Then do those 2 things. Do one thing that's either local or lifestyle, and preferably local, but one thing that's more just everybody can enjoy this, and then one thing that's real estate. And then just make sure you're doing that consistently. Set yourself a schedule. Do that every week. Do it every couple of weeks. Whatever schedule you want to do. I would say you don't want it to go more than once. You don't want to go further out than once a month. You probably don't want to go as often as once a day. I'd say about once a week is about right. So once every 2 weeks is about right. But yeah, start there. So again, one thing that's more local, lifestyle, or personal, and one thing that's real estate every week. And there you go. You got your newsletter. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Let's take a few questions. I just saw one that says, where can we find templates? So I kind of just wanted to show you guys. You can absolutely, I thought about including some templates in this, but I also wanted to kind of show you that templates are already done for you in these email clients. So you could go see one online and think like, oh, that's beautiful, and then try and recreate it. Or you can just hop in here and kind of just one click, you got it, and then just, change a few things so that it reflects you more. So this is kind of constant contact. Oh, go ahead. I'll show.
Go ahead and start pulling it up so people can see. In the background, I'll just tell people, just let you know, you don't want to overthink this. Right. Yeah. One of the things that's been pretty consistently seen is that actually heavily designed templates don't get you better results. That actually simple emails with simple content actually tend to work fairly well. So even if the template looks fairly nice and fairly flashy, that's not what you care about. What you care about is are you connecting with people? Are you engaging with them? So you don't really need to overthink that. And what these platforms do is they already just make it fairly easy to get something out that looks professional, that's simple enough, and you don't really need to overthink it. You just sort of drag and drop and replace the replace the stuff with the stuff that you want to throw in there, and it's easy peasy.
Yeah, so this is just like a broad template, and you would just think like, okay, let me put like an article picture here, like, this is my favorite pizza restaurant, pizzas in South Park, a little article about that. And then here's further down, here's an open house if you want to come. And then here's me, this is something fun I'm doing. And it's that easy, you don't want to spend a ton of time on this, like an hour or so, just something nice and clean like this. And this, if you wanted to do this in Constant Contact, you go in here, you click, select template, and then, like Zach said, you're just going to drop the pictures you want on there, type a few things, and send it to your list. And it's similar with Mailchimp. This is kind of what it looks like with Mailchimp.
It's basically the same process.
Yeah. It's actually kind of a little bit slicker in that it makes sure it's simple for you. Like, it's just going to look like this. So
it'll force you to keep it simple.
yeah. It's not going to make it, it's going to definitely keep you focused on, just keeping the basics. But then it's easy, just drag and drop stuff. You don't have to be a tech wizard to do this. So we could include templates, but really these things are already done for you. You can just hop into any of these platforms and send it out.
And exactly on that point, I mean, honestly, to some degree, including a template would almost be a disservice to you guys, because we can include templates that look great and look flashy and you might be impressed with, but really you just want something simple. Throw your logo in there, throw your copy in there, throw a picture that's relevant to what you're talking about, and you're good. Like you don't need something with fancy backgrounds and all sorts of styling. Keep it simple. Make sure it's going to look good on mobile, which, whether you're using Mailchimp or Constant Contact, you're going to have the tools to make sure that happens. And just flow with the templates that are already in there, and you're going to be solid. So there's a couple of questions that I think I can answer, but there's a few that we could probably rapid fire go through as well. So this one definitely for you. Does API Nation integrate with Chime CRM? You guys already integrate with that?
Chime is great. They have an open API, so they are on our roadmap to pick up and start integrating with in the future. If you want to send me an email with the things you'd like to integrate with Chime first, that way we can prioritize them, get these things to the top so that when Chime is landed on our platform, the stuff that you need is right at the top.
Perfect. And then Andrea or Andrea, I'm not sure which way you pronounce it, and I probably got one of them right and one of them wrong. Why would you link your CRM to Constant Contact rather than sending the newsletters through it? Yeah, that's a great question. It's I don't remember if we actually covered that on this webinar or not, but the basic idea is sometimes it helps to compartmentalize things, right? So your CRM, if you can keep it focused on one-to-one sales type conversations, where it's just designed to generate conversations with specific people, that could be a great way to kind of keep it compartmentalized and using it for that purpose. Whereas something like Constant Contact and Mailchimp, you can know that it's basically anyone that ends up in there, anything that ends up in there, at least in big buckets. Your plan is to email them en masse, and it works or it doesn't based on the sum total rather than like an individual person by person sort of communication basis. So that's why we recommend having both. Your CRM is going to be great for those one-to-one communications, even if they're automated and technically happening at a large scale. Whereas something like Constant Contact or Mailchimp is going to be perfect for that mass communication that you're sending out all at once, and you can just mentally know that they're tools that are good for two different things. So while you technically could use your CRM to do some of the same things sometimes, it could be a problem. The other thing that could be a little bit challenging is the way that your CRM communication happens. You really, to put it simply, it could be useful to separate them out so that if problems happen in one, they don't happen in the other. So if you're sending out direct communications, you kind of want the email clients to process those and see those slightly differently than they see your mass communications, so that you don't run into like problems where you're getting blacklisted and stuff like that. So
makes a lot of sense, yeah.
It's not a necessity, but it can be a useful buffer, if that makes sense.
That is nice to kind of have, not all your eggs in the one CRM basket for sure. The only other thing I've heard people do this because Mailchimp, Constant Contact, SendGrid, Sendinblue, they have really nice reporting features. So a lot of the CRMs are headed that direction. I know kvCORE is really close to launching some of this stuff, and they've added some of these build an email with blocks, which is super sweet. But the reporting on who's opening it, how many people are opening it, how many people are clicking through, what links are they clicking, all that stuff is going to be reported in Mailchimp and Constant Contact. So that's super nice to have, so that you can send out better and better emails.
Right. Yeah, and not only that, like the mass email programs like Mailchimp and Constant Contact have easier ability to do like a 1 to 2 click resend to people who didn't open the first email. So like, things like that most of the CRMs don't have that ability. It's like technically you could pull the list, maybe look and do the research, pull a separate list and resend it, but it's enough work that most people aren't going to do it. Whereas in something like, I know Mailchimp especially does this. I'm not positive Constant Contact does, but there's literally like a 1 click, you can resend anybody who didn't open, and make it really easy to increase your overall open rate.
Yeah. Michael also points out that if they unsubscribe from your newsletter, your weekly newsletter, they don't unsubscribe from all your communication in your CRM, which is kind of nice. Like you said, not everybody in the same basket. Cool. I got a question from Tyus. What is the platform you recommend the most to send newsletters? Do you have a favorite?
Honestly, I really don't. The one that I recommend is the one that you're going to use. If you're already on one, stay on it and just keep using it. If you aren't currently, both Constant Contact and Mailchimp are great options. I really recommend you dive in and look at the specifics to see what stands out to you, what things apply to you most. Both are great platforms. I really have a hard time picking a dog in that fight.
Yeah, no, they're both great. You get like 30 days free on Constant Contact, and you get an account. Your account is free on Mailchimp up to 2,000 contacts. So I would fire up both of them, kind of poke around and see which one, like a gym, which one you're going to go to and actually get in and use all the time. So that's what I would do. We like both of them. They both work great, and that's kind of how things are headed. As things grow and get better and better, it's becoming harder and harder to tell the difference between a Ford and a Chevy. So.
Yeah, exactly. And they each have their own particulars, and they're always kind of battling each other. So it changes over time. But honestly, most of those differences are really just going to be a matter of preference. So I'd get in and see what you like. Like, honestly, no joke. I hear a lot of people who are like, hey, I tried Mailchimp, and for whatever reason, I just didn't really like the way that it works. But Constant Contact makes way more sense to me. Or the other way around, where they're like, I can never figure out Constant Contact and make it work for me, but Mailchimp's a lot easier, more intuitive for me. So really, there's like a lot of its personality. And luckily, if you get in and you sort of figure out that it's not a great fit for you, it's honestly, for most of these platforms, it's not too hard to transition if you need to.
That's right. Yeah. It's actually pretty easy to jump back and forth. For sure.
So Jeremiah asked, I noticed on some of the newsletter examples, there are links to refer a friend or search homes. Does Constant Contact allow these options? So yes and no. Every one of the email platforms is going to give you the ability to embed your own links and connect them to other things. But as far as I'm aware, Constant Contact and Mailchimp, neither of those platforms are going to they're not going to have the thing that you're going to link to. So you need, if you wanted to give people the option to refer a friend, then you need to have some place set up or some mechanism set up where you're saying, hey, you do this in order to refer me a friend. Either send them to like a form page where somebody can drop in information that they want you to reach out to. The search homes, same thing. Like if you have your own site with IDX or something like that, then you can link them out to that from within your email. And then yes, both of them will allow that as long as you already have the tool in play. But those tools are outside of what those platforms are specifically about. They're about the email, and they're about building out those email templates that you could send them out, as opposed to offering some of those ancillary tools.
Yeah, Mia has a great point. I remember talking to when I talked to Constant Contact about their platform. One of their big strengths they mentioned is that you can call them and talk to somebody. That's one of their, they love, that's one of their pride and joys is that if you want help
That's
with
a big deal. Yeah.
with email, yeah, if you want to talk to somebody, you can do it. I've chatted with people at Mailchimp in the past, but yeah, if you're a phone person and you wanna hear somebody walk you through it, Constant Contact might be the option you want to go with there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and that's a fantastic point. Support makes a big difference.
Yeah. A few other things. Janet, she did mention earlier in the webinar about embedding onto websites, what are some of the ways
Yeah,
that you
let's
would
talk about
reuse
it.
this email content?
Yeah, so first and foremost, what I would say is don't embed your newsletter onto your website. Don't do that specifically, meaning specifically embed it. Now, what I would 100% recommend is that the content of your newsletter should and can exist not only on your website, but it could be that like your strategy for social media posting might be stuff that informs what you put into your newsletter, right? Like, so the content itself, the ideas, the words, the pictures, you can reuse those. You could put that on your website, but really it's going to be more about creating the post, creating the content on the website, using the best tools on that website. So like if you have a WordPress website, putting the blog onto WordPress, and then similarly, your newsletter might not actually contain a full article of what you're going to talk about, but rather it's going to link to your WordPress site that has the full article where they can like consume all the content. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I don't recommend, in terms of the content of the newsletter, I don't recommend embedding that on your website. That's not the best way for people to consume the content. You use email as the way to either springboard into other content, or like that. Yeah. As opposed to just hosting an email on the website. Now, it's possible part of what you're meaning is how do you make it so that on your website, people end up in your email list, which is a little bit different. So that would be, most of these sites will provide like form software if you want like a direct way for people to sign up for your newsletter. But I got to be honest, most people are not going to sign up for these newsletters directly. So that's a whole separate strategy of like using lead magnets and offers in order to entice somebody to actually end up on your list. Most people probably aren't going to sign up for this directly unless you put together a really enticing idea of what your newsletter is. Like if for instance, in your local segment, if every week you're coming out with a brand new local deal that you've arranged with a local business, people might sign up for that, right? Yeah. But most people don't just sign up for a newsletter, so you're probably going to generate these people through other methods. But like Gabe's showing here, you can create these sign up forms and put those on your website. You can embed that on your website so that people can end up in your list, directly if they want to.
Yeah, there's tools on both these. Mailchimp has one too, where you can just create a landing page and capture people that way. But the easiest way is actually just continue doing business the way you've been doing business, and then just have this automation sync things over from .loop so that as you touch these people, or have it sync it over from kvCORE or LionDesk or any of these other platforms that you're using. So that just as you're doing business and creating your database of customers, they automatically get added to your emails list, and you don't have to worry about all this stuff. And then one thing I wanted to show you, and Heidi kind of touched on it to tie this thing back up, is talking about using that email content. So we did a webinar a few months ago, and the follow-up email I sent was, hey, we missed you at the webinar. Here's a recording, and then here's a bunch of content. And so this is how we did it. And then instead of embedding this or reposting this on Facebook kind of as an email, what I did is I just took this email, this exact content, and I put it on our blog. So it's basically the same stuff. Here's the video, here's the content we talked about, and then here's the links to other stuff. And then I could just link to this from Facebook, and it's on my website. It's ready to go, and it's getting me link juice as my website grows, so that anytime somebody search for email real estate agent, hopefully they'll end up here and they'll learn about Zach and me and API Nation and all that stuff. So that's what I would suggest to do is make a blog out of these emails. It takes just a second to do.
Yeah, so putting them on your site, and then what you would put on Facebook would be linking out to this post as the way that you do it. So you definitely, like, I wouldn't recommend putting your full content in like one massive post on Facebook.
Yeah.
Not like this. No, don't get me wrong. There are some Facebook posts that actually work really well that are long form content, but that's a little bit different than what we're talking about here. This specifically, definitely put more into a blog and then link to that rather than just putting it all on Facebook.
Cool.
Okay, perfect.
We're gonna wrap it up. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go
this
ahead.
will probably be the last question here.
All right, cool. Do you recommend that we send newsletters from our kvCORE page? And by the way, if I don't know how much time you got, I could probably answer a bunch of these questions fairly quick.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
All right, cool. So do you recommend that we send newsletters from our kvCORE page, which allows us to send emails in the advanced way? So again, I would recommend that you go the route of sending them through a newsletter platform. You're going to get some benefits from that, but it's not a hard and fast thing. If you would prefer sending them through kvCORE, you can make it work. I would personally prefer to do it through something like Mailchimp or Constant Contact. Newsletter versus blog is another question. Both is what I would say. Do both. And very often your blog can be the source of most of your content in order to create newsletters. So you create your blog and then you link your newsletter to your blog. So you do like a little snippet in your newsletter, and then that links back out to your blog. And that's how I would do that. Let me see. Lee mentions, would you have all these contents in each newsletter or focus on one category of content per newsletter? You could do it both ways. I would personally have your newsletter be like a one recurring thing, that if you have multiple segments in it, that's fine. So multiple slightly different segments in one newsletter each week is fine. If you would rather do a newsletter where you sort of change topics every week, that can work as well. But again, always have at least one thing that's more evergreen and everybody, and one thing that's real estate, in order to make sure that you're keeping your real estate message out there. Let's see. Do you recommend have examples of how to include content that is interactive, polls, contests, or there are other ways to make them interactive? Honestly, to start, that's definitely a more advanced topic. I don't think you need to. I would get started with something like this. If you're already doing a newsletter and you want to make it more interactive, the biggest thing that you want to do is you want to drop a question in there that people have to reply to directly in order to generate conversations.
Yeah, and actually that's a great plan. Generating that engagement actually sends signals to Gmail, Outlook, all those people, so that it kind of says like, oh, Zach, you responded to his email earlier. You'll always see Zach emails at the top. So that's that interaction. That's a good thing to do, is just kind of send an email, ask for a response, let us know about that. That's a great strategy.
Absolutely. Lavonda asked if there's an automated option. There are some companies that do automated stuff. If you'd like to, you drop that question into the group. We can point out some options for you on that end. But honestly, I wouldn't recommend it to start. I would strive to take the time once a week and put yourself personally into their feed, because more and more having something that's done in mass is just going to get ignored. But if you can take a little bit of time yourself to put it together, and it doesn't take long. You just it could be simple. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out. It could be a simple recommendation for business, or a simple tip about something that you like in the area. It could be something that literally only takes you 10 to 15 minutes a week. Andrea asked, what about they who shall not be named? Honestly, other companies, they can work, right? Like, in all fairness, there are other platforms that do similar things. The biggest difference between what we're talking about here and what API Nation does and other competitors is that API Nation makes it easy. So it's a little bit beyond what we would be talking about here, Andrea, to show you solutions that use another platform. But yeah, I mean, by all means, if that's the direction that you want to go, you can dive into that. Forewarning you, it's going to be harder than it is with API Nation, because API Nation makes it easy. Somebody asked earlier if somebody has to opt in for the newsletter in order for you to receive it. I did want to touch on that. Did want to touch on that real quick. If you're sending to people that you have a client relationship with already, then you're fairly solid there. If you're sending to friends and family, you're fairly solid there. If you've got like a massive list of people who aren't expecting to hear from you and you send to a bunch of people all at once, you may run into some trouble. But the laws and legalities around it vary by country. In Canada, it's a bit more strict than it is in the US. So keep that in mind. I don't know how many people we'd have in Canada on this call. But definitely check your local laws. In the US, at least as of right now, for a legal standpoint, you are allowed to send emails to anyone as long as you include your address. You give them an easy way to unsubscribe. Your subject line is not misleading, and you indicate that it's from a business. You do those things, and you can technically send emails to everyone. Now, companies like Mailchimp and Constant Contact will definitely discourage you from sending to large lists of people that haven't opted in, but you're technically allowed to at a legal level. Now, you might run into some problems on the platform. So it really, the best rule of thumb is really ask yourself if how likely is it the person on the other end is going to be okay with receiving this email. If it's likely that they aren't, then don't send it. If it's likely that they are okay with it because they're close to you and you have a relationship with them already, then you should be fine as long as it's not massive numbers.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is as you send, if they don't interact with it for a while, you can pull them off the list. You can just say there's tools inside Constant Contact and Mailchimp to say, hey, who has not opened any of these emails in all the years I've been sending?
Right.
And then you can pull them off.
Them.
That way you don't. Yeah. It helps your open rates. It helps your deliverability. It's definitely like normal, good email hygiene.
Right. Oh, and actually, Michael here, I didn't even think about this point. Michael, this is a fantastic point about why it makes sense to keep them separate from your CRM versus your newsletter service. If they unsubscribe from your newsletter, it doesn't prevent you from emailing them in your CRM, right? So like you can set it up so that those more one-to-one communications, you can still send to them potentially without trouble. So somebody could unsubscribe from your newsletter and not be unsubscribing from all communication from you, which can be a useful thing. So by having those separate, it makes it easy to kind of silo the effects of that. Okay, so we got some questions about the any resources for sending newsletters out of kvCORE. I mean, again, we kind of recommend against it. But I have seen some stuff. If you Google it, I know that there are some tutorials out there that talk about it if that's the route that you really want to go.
I'm going to actually send one in there if you want to check it out. We have a friend named Sylvia Dana, and she has put together this really nice video that kind of walks through sending emails using the editor in kvCORE. So if you want to check that out for kvCORE users.
There you go. And then when you prepare content, say over the weekend, does either platform allow us to automate the sends for the week? Yeah. So both of them will. So that would be like a scheduled send. Yeah, both of them will let you do that. So you could say get your newsletter ready on Monday and then actually send it out on Friday. You could schedule that out, and that's definitely something that you could do.
Or if you're an all-star, sit down at the beginning of the month and just type out 3 or 4 emails and schedule them out for the month. Bam, you're done. That is a great way to work. And one day I will be that way, but.
Right. Yeah. So Andrew asked a great question. So other than these insightful webinars, which thank you, what does API Nation do for me? So I get that I need to get my list, build my contents in my newsletter. Yeah. So that's a great question. API Nation is the bridge between these different platforms for you, right? So you're working in Dotloop, you're working in kvCORE, you're working in your CRM, whatever. API Nation is the bridge that makes it so that the work in this place can automatically happen over here. So you're not having to manually export lists from Dotloop and import them into Mailchimp. That all happens automatically without you having to think about it after you get it done. So API Nation makes that connection for you and makes it automated and makes it easy. So those are that's the basic idea of what API Nation does.
Yep, that's the big thing for sure.
Okay. How often do you do these? Oh yeah. So we got people wanting more. Stay tuned. Definitely, Gabe definitely practices what we preach here, and API Nation is continually putting out great information about webinars that are going to be coming out, opportunities that are coming up. So I'm not sure exactly how often the webinars go on, Gabe, But they happen fairly often. And even if not webinars, I know you guys are putting out a lot of good information, connecting people to great resources. So watch your emails, open them, because that'll make sure that you keep receiving them.
Yeah, we're looking to do it about every 2 weeks. I think the next one we are looking to do is about Facebook ads. So if that's something you're interested in, just stay on our newsletter, and I'll make sure to let you know about it.
Yep. And if you want to make sure that you're seeing just a quick hack for you, because Google and Yahoo and everybody is going to try and not show your emails, the emails that you subscribe to. If you want to make sure you're seeing them, there's a couple of things you can do. You can whitelist them. You can add the contact to your address book. So the email that API Nation sends from, you can add that to your contact book. That'll make it show up higher. You can also open the email and reply to it. Even if you just say something as simple as, hey, thanks for this email, that'll be a signal that lets Google know that I want to see these emails. I want to make sure that they're showing up for me. So those are a couple of signals that you make sure that you're not missing the emails, that Google doesn't proactively try and hide them from you, which they've started to do.
Cool.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue to the future. This webinar coming up, Facebook ads, which stay tuned for that. Also, after this webinar, I'll send you guys that email about the syncs we talked about, the integrations, Constant Contact to .loop, Mailchimp, kvCORE, all those guys. And then if you have any questions, just reply back. I'll share them with Zach. You think of something later tonight when you are just about to fall asleep, write it down, email it in, we'll figure it out, and you guys will make more money. So thanks so much for coming.
And also feel free to leverage the Facebook groups as well. Get into the API Nation Facebook group. You can drop your questions in there. I know I'm a member in that Facebook group. Gabe's a member in the Facebook group. So if you tag either of us, we should see it. And if you tag Gabe and I miss it, I'm sure Gabe will tag me if it's relevant for me to jump in on too. So feel free to leverage those groups as well.
Yeah, the groups could be huge. Like I said, when you send that email, drop it in the group, let us know, show us what it looks like, and we'll do it. Cool. Awesome. It's great talking to you guys. We really appreciate the time, and we really do hope this was helpful and you guys start sending emails this week. I want to see them in the groups, and best of luck. Any questions, we are available.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, Zach. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
We'll see you guys on the next one.